Imagine shutting down a single shipping lane, or one chip factory, or one rare earth refinery. Suddenly, cars stop, AI slows down, factories shut down, markets panic. Modern civilization doesn't run on abundance, it runs on bottlenecks. In the 20th century, power meant something simple. Who has more resources, more oil, more land, more factories, more people? In the 21st century, that question changed. It's not who has the most. It's who controls the one narrow point everyone has to pass through. A choke point isn't just a geographic passage, it's a narrow gateway that an entire global system depends on all at once. Block it, even briefly, and the effects don't stay local. They ripple through supply chains on the other side of the planet within days. This isn't a new idea, by the way, just a newly obvious one. The British Empire built its entire global power around exactly this concept a century ago. Gibraltar, Suez, Singapore, Hong Kong. Control those 4 points, and you effectively controlled the sea routes connecting Europe to Asia. The Royal Navy didn't need to occupy every ocean, it just needed to hold the doorways. What's changed isn't the strategy. It's the number of doorways that now matter, and how many different industries depend on each one simultaneously. Start with the oldest kind. Ocean choke points. The Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Malacca. The Panama Canal. The Suez Canal. Roughly a fifth of the entire world's oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz alone, a waterway barely 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. This isn't theoretical. Earlier this year, escalating conflict in the Middle East choked traffic through Hormuz directly, and Brent crude spiked toward $140 a barrel. Saudi Arabia rerouted its exports through the Red Sea instead, using the Bab el-Mandeb Strait as a workaround. Then Houthi rebels attacked tankers in that exact strait too. 2 choke points compromised at the same time, and there was nowhere left to reroute to. The Strait of Malacca carries a similar share of global trade between Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. The Suez and Panama canals each handle a smaller slice individually, but a blockage in either one instantly reroutes thousands of ships around entire continents, adding weeks to shipping times overnight. The Panama Canal showed a different kind of choke point failure a few years back. Not conflict, drought. The canal runs on fresh water, not seawater, to operate its locks. A historic drought hit the region. Water levels dropped so low that authorities had to slash the number of ships allowed through each day. Shipping companies faced weeks of delay, or paid enormous premiums to jump the queue. A choke point doesn't need an enemy to fail. Sometimes the weather alone is enough. The Suez Canal offered its own preview of this back in 2021. A single container ship got wedged sideways across the channel. It blocked the entire waterway for 6 days. One ship, 6 days. An estimated $400 million an hour in global trade stalled. Also, it took a surprisingly small excavator and a very determined digger operator to eventually start freeing it. A single photo of that lone excavator went viral, dwarfed by the size of the ship it was trying to dig out. One of the most shared images of that entire year. Comedy and catastrophe, sitting in the exact same frame. That's the strange thing about choke points. The systems depending on them are unimaginably vast. The physical failure point is often almost laughably small. None of these passages are replaceable on short notice. That's what makes them choke points rather than just busy shipping lanes. Now here's a choke point that isn't water. It's silicon. One company on one island makes more than 90% of the world's most advanced computer chips. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. sitting about 130 kilometers from a country that has never ruled out taking that island by force. There is no second source, no backup factory on another continent making the same chips at the same level of precision. TSMC now accounts for over 40% of Taiwan's entire stock market, a concentration so extreme that regulators had to change fund rules just to let index funds legally hold enough of it. Behind TSMC sits an even narrower choke point. A single Dutch company, ASML, makes something nobody else on Earth can: the extreme ultraviolet lithography machines required to etch the smallest, most advanced chip designs. Without ASML's machines, TSMC can't make its most advanced chips. Without TSMC's chips, the entire AI industry, every major cloud provider, every smartphone maker, grinds to a halt. Two companies, one island, one country, holding up the entire foundation of modern computing. Governments understand exactly how dangerous that concentration is, which is part of why so much political energy has gone into subsidizing chip fabs elsewhere. The US, the EU, Japan, and India have all launched multi-billion-dollar programs specifically to build domestic or allied chip manufacturing capacity. Every one of those projects takes years to become fully operational. None of them, even combined, comes close to matching TSMC's precision at the most advanced nodes, at least not yet. Which means, for at least the next several years, the choke point stays exactly where it is. There's a strange irony sitting underneath this one, too. The Netherlands is smaller than the state of Maryland, and it currently holds more leverage over the future of artificial intelligence than most nations on Earth, purely because one company there figured out how to bend light in a way nobody else has managed to replicate. Governments have gone to genuinely unusual lengths to protect that leverage. The Dutch government, under pressure from the US, has restricted ASML from selling its most advanced machines to China at all, which means a single export license decision signed in The Hague can reshape the entire trajectory of another country's chip industry. Now widen the lens further to something buried in the ground: rare earth elements, materials most people have never heard of. Dysprosium, terbium, neodymium, they go into permanent magnets used in electric vehicles, wind turbines, smartphones, and fighter jets. China doesn't just mine the most rare earth ore, it processes and refines about 91% of the world's entire supply, and manufactures roughly 94% of the powerful magnets made from it. Those magnets sit inside F-35 fighter jet actuators, inside Tesla's humanoid robots, inside Virginia-class submarines. In 2025, China introduced export controls on several rare earth elements. Within weeks, car makers in the US and Europe were forced to cut production. Some shut down factories entirely because they simply couldn't get the magnets their own vehicles needed. Western governments have spent billions trying to build alternative supply chains since then. By the world's own energy agency's estimate, China's grip isn't loosening anytime soon. Still expected to control roughly 3/4 of global refining capacity through the end of this decade. Which brings us to the newest choke point of all, sitting on top of everything else on this list. AI itself runs on a stack of choke points, layered on top of each other. NVIDIA designs the chips everyone wants. TSMC is the only place advanced enough to manufacture them. A small handful of companies, mainly SK Hynix and Samsung, produce nearly all of it. The specialized high-bandwidth memory those chips need just to function at full speed, and underneath all of it sits electricity itself. Data centers now need so much power that transformer lead times have stretched from a few weeks to several years. Utilities are struggling to keep pace, with demand concentrated in a handful of specific regions. Every layer of the AI boom runs through its own narrow choke point. The chip, the memory, the power, the cooling, any single one of them can slow the entire industry down. There's one more choke point, and it's not physical at all: money itself. The US dollar remains the currency for the overwhelming majority of global trade and reserves. SWIFT, the messaging network banks use to move money internationally, routes the vast majority of the world's cross-border financial transactions. Get cut off from either one, and a country doesn't just lose convenience. It loses the ability to participate in large parts of the global economy at all. That's exactly why financial sanctions have become one of the most powerful weapons a government can use without firing a single shot. Freeze access to the dollar system or to SWIFT specifically, and you can cripple a national economy from thousands of miles away. Russia found this out directly in 2022, when several of its largest banks were cut off from SWIFT almost overnight. Ordinary transactions, imports, exports, even routine business payments suddenly became difficult or impossible to process internationally. That's the financial version of blocking a strait. No missiles, no invasion, just a network access point switched off. Some countries have responded by building their own alternative payment systems, specifically to reduce their exposure to this single point of failure. None of those alternatives yet handle anywhere near the volume SWIFT does, which means, for now, the choke point holds. Here's a fun way to test how much any of this has actually sunk in. Could you point to the Strait of Malacca on a blank map? Could you name the company that makes the machine, that makes the chip, that makes the AI model answering your questions right now? Almost nobody can, and that's sort of the point. The most powerful choke points in the modern world are, by design, invisible until the moment they break. So here's the actual shift underneath all of this. A few decades ago, most of these were considered economic issues: trade policy, supply chain logistics, commodity markets. Today, every one of them gets discussed in the same room as missile defense and troop deployments. Governments now treat chip factories, rare earth refineries, shipping lanes, and payment networks as matters of national security, not just national economics. That's why countries are racing to bring supply chains home: domestic chip fabs, domestic rare earth refining, domestic magnet production. Not because it's cheaper. It's usually far more expensive to build locally than to keep buying from the existing choke point. Countries are doing it anyway, because dependency on a single choke point you don't control has become the single largest vulnerability a modern economy can carry. The next global conflict may not begin with armies crossing a border. It may begin somewhere much quieter: a tanker in a strait, an export license denied, a single factory on a single island told to stop shipping. That's the age we're actually living in now. Not an age of abundance, an age of choke points.